What is going on, NBA fans? I am your host, Matt Nost, and I am here today to talk a little NBA All-Star balloting. It is that time of year. Ballots are due next week. I would rather personally hold off until the very last minute to fill out my ballot because there's so much fluctuation within team standings and who's trending in the right direction and who's not. So like right now, Miami is surging. And what if by the time ballots are due next week, they, climb into, let's say hypothetically, currently they're sitting in 10th at 10-14, but 2 wins, they jump into 6-7 range. Like it's entirely possible. And that's the difference of between now and next week when this goes, you officially have to submit these rosters and whatnot. But so I am calling on you. I have an idea about 90% of the roster of what. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to give my starters for each conference and then also do who I think should be the reserves. The way the NBA does it is the starters are voted on by the fans, and fans account for 50% of the vote. Then writers, another 25%, and players, another 25% as to who gets to start. And then the coaches pick who the reserves are. So we as fans have an influence on the outcome of who the starters will be. But after that, it's up to the coaches on who they want to select. And by and large, I think, the coaches mostly get it right. Obviously, because they see the who's doing it night in, night out, who deserves to make this game. But I think there's errors amongst the fans, amongst the players, and amongst the writers. Every year, fans overvote for somebody who I don't think deserves it. Some players take it very seriously. Others are voting for teammates. And writers, there are certain writers that just are pure homers and vote for their guys and their guys alone. And I'm not saying fans don't do that, but fans' vote is worth so much less compared to players and writers that it's more egregious when you see one of them and you're like, why in the world did, Mason Plumlee get a vote? I got nothing against Mason Plumlee, but do I think he deserves to be an all-star? It's like those random, there'll be 20 or 25 random players where you're just like, I don't understand a world in which Josh Okogie deserved an all-star vote. Just a fine player. He's infinitely better at the game than I ever will be. I'm not knocking the guy's skill, but to say he's elite is something else, but it happens every year. So anyway, the fan vote, it's our say. So if you want to chime in on the chat once I get into this, please do. I am open to any and all discussion. And if you prefer to join, I am going to grab some people and as we go through this and have them pop on and give their 2 cents. And there's already at least one email from somebody that wants to jump on, and I will get to you. His name is Owen. I will get to you, Owen. So we'll start with the fan voting as it stands right now. They'll do the final tallies after next week. So in the East, in the backcourt, you got Bradley Beal with 1.273 million votes. Kyrie Irving is in second place with 1.093 million votes. James Harden is currently in third with 1.014 million votes. So Harden could supplant Kyrie by the end of this. And then after that, it's like a steep drop off, I think, to Jaylen Brown. Hold on, I can pull up the voting numbers. I'm not sure where I put those. Here we go. And then, Jaylen Brown at 590,000 votes. So Brad Beal, Kyrie Irving, and James Harden, one of 2 of those 3 are going to be your starters today. Or as of next week, according to the fans. Then the front court players in the East are Kevin Durant with 2.3 million votes, Giannis with 1.75, and Embiid with 1.584. And then coming in fourth is Jason Tatum with 822,000. So unless something goes severely awry, Kevin Durant, Giannis, and Embiid are going to be the three front court nominees via fan voting in the East. And in the West, it's Steph Curry with 2.1 million votes. Luka Doncic with 1.395. And then Dame is in third at 1,200 votes, shy of a million. So he's not too far off Luka, but almost a 400,000 vote lead is going to be tough to surmount. And then fourth place, then it's a steep drop off. Fourth place is Ja Morant with 257,000 votes. Ja's not making it on the fan vote. And then front court players in the West, it's LeBron with 2.28, Jokic with 1.477, and Kawhi with 1.285. Anthony Davis is in fourth with 1.192, and then Paul George's steep drop off, 549,000. So those are your fan votes as of right now. The locks on those are going to be KD, Giannis, and Embiid, and then Steph, more than likely Luka, LeBron, and Jokic. Kawhi could get overtaken by Anthony Davis if Laker fans have their say, and there are a lot of Laker fans in the world. So those are your locks. Do I agree with all of those? No, not even close. I agree with, let's see, 3, 6, 7. 7 of the 10 I agree with. So that's where we will jump in. We'll do the West first because I know who I've got my starters locked in the West. In the East, I have a spot open. I don't have everybody locked in the East. So in the West, here's what I've got for starters. Your back court, and this was tough. Not on the first one. Donovan Mitchell is my first backcourt selection. He's the number one option on the number one team in the NBA. They deserve to have a starter in the NBA All-Star game. Since Chuck basically told him, or not Chuck, I'm sorry, Shaq on TNT that, to his face, no less, that, you know, he's never going to be a championship guy. He's never going to be able to lead a championship team. His numbers have gone up even a little bit more. It's not like they were wildly different, but they have, you know, nice little uptick. And last night he was the man late in the fourth quarter. And I think that's to some degree how the Utah Jazz are kind of designed, to team effort until very late. And it's just like Donovan can take over. And if they can get Bogdanovich to stay healthy and Conley to keep, basically staying on course as of right now, and then Jingle and Joe just putting in little pieces here and there when they really need him, Gobert controlling the paint, Clarkson coming off the bench. And I think it's a recipe for success for the Utah Jazz. Will it translate into them making like Western Conference Finals or potentially the overall finals? I don't know. It's still a tough task. You're going to have to beat in a best of 7. You're going to have to beat the Lakers or the Clippers in 4 games out of 7. Still tough. But as they're currently constructed, they're super interesting. They're number one in the NBA overall, both conferences. And I think that deserves to have somebody represented as a starter. Hopefully the players and the writers, do the right thing and get him in as a starter, because I think it's well-deserved. And if you've watched this show when I do it in the past, I like to reward winning teams when it comes to the All-Star game. Now, there are variations within that. And I think this year, especially, maybe we should get into that. There's only in each conference, basically in the East, there's 2 elite teams. And then in the West, there's 3. And then after that, I guess, Phoenix isn't so far off in the 4th spot. But I buy the Clippers more. Plus, the Clippers have played a couple more games. That's the big variation because of COVID protocols and guys, teams being held out and whatnot. Not everybody's record is the same. So there are variations, and you kind of have to take that into a weighted. So the reason I bring it up is because there's only really a couple elite teams in each conference. My usual formula of I want to reward winning there's so much basically average as far as teams go. There's slightly above average, slightly below average, and there's a huge chunk of those right in the middle of everybody's conference, both conferences, basically starting at either the 3 or the 4 seed, and then going down as far as in the West, I would say to 11, 12. Like there's not much a difference on some level between 7 and 14 in the West. And then in the East, with the way Brooklyn is trending with 3 straight losses, they're not that far ahead. Half game over the Celtics at 4, but there's only, 3.5 games between them and 12th position of my Bulls. So there's a lot of average this year. And sadly, at 9 and 14, my Bulls are just slightly below average for this season. So because of the, it's tough to get a handle on who the truly elite teams are right now. I think that should be reflected within the All-Stars. And I say all that for my next starter in the West is going to be Steph Curry. You could sell me on Dame Lillard. You can sell me on Devin Booker. I had Booker as a starter. And then really sat down and thought about it. And it's like, the difference to me is if you subtracted Booker off the Suns with Chris Paul there and the collection of other young guys that I find very interesting, and Johnson and Bridges and Ayton is starting, to come up really strong. Well, at least he's trending in the right direction of being a foundational center. They take a hit, but it is nowhere near as dramatic a hit as if you took Steph Curry off of the Warriors. They would be nothing. Literally nothing. Right now, he leads the league in points, and the best. So this is what I wanted to see from Steph last year before he got hurt. Was let's see what it's like if Steph has James Harden in Houston's usage rate. And right now, Steph's numbers are fantastic at an exceptionally high usage rate. And he's doing it when teams know that they have no choice but to double and triple team him. And he is still, it's like, all right, I'm shooting this one from the logo. And now I'm going to drive down and do this little up and under dipsy do, layup that just works. It's like basically it's like quick old man game at times because he plays below the rim like most of us mere mortals. It is a rare day when Steph dunks, and I'm not saying that you or I or anyone is equivalent to Steph. I'm just saying the fact that he doesn't dunk and is at least I can identify with that. I've never dunked. And it's, I'm sure, a lifelong goal of most anybody, but there are certain physical limitations. I guess I could have worked on it. I've seen a video of a guy that for like 2 years, he went, he was a little bit shorter than me, and he just worked on dunking and building the muscles, and eventually he got to that point. And it's a hell of a goal, and God bless you. I'm now 42. Those days are gone. It's never happened, and it's never going to happen. One of those sad things about life. But yeah, I just watching Steph night in, night out, knowing that the defense has no choice. And, there was a certain point where during this season, early on, when they were kind of up and down, and Oubre was just shooting so terribly that if you subtracted Oubre's numbers from the Warriors, because Steph was so magnificent, that they went from a bottom tier team to elite on the scoring just by subtracting one player. And Oubre's he's had at least 1 or 2 stellar games since then. A couple nights ago, he had a phenomenal game. And you knew that it would kind of be like this with Oubre up and down. And I think just given the fact that Steph is such a catalyst and a driver for that entire offense and everything that they're doing, and they're hanging about, currently sitting in 8th position, making the playoffs at 13 and 12. They win a couple more games. They're 5-5 in their last 10, but if they go 6-4 in their next 10, 7-3 in their next 10, they're going to jump up, and they're, going to be in the solid playoff mix as opposed to the play-in game. That to me is deserving of making a starting position. Moving on. The next three are no-brainers. The fans got it right. It's LeBron, it's Kawhi, it's Nikola Jokic. You could try and sell me on PG, who's played one more game than Kawhi, but if you look at the numbers, man, the on-offs with Kawhi versus PG, it all favors Kawhi. Now, right now, PG is shooting better from three, but the defensive metrics, the offense's fluidity, the number of the point differential when he's playing versus when he's not, it's just staggering in favor of Kawhi. Jokic is putting up an MVP caliber season, as is LeBron. I think those three are no-brainers. And if Anthony Davis overtakes Kawhi, I'm not entirely against it. Anthony Davis is now going to be out for a little while. He's got that, Achilles injury. I can't remember what it's specifically called, but I know it's labeled as degenerative, but it's more so long as he gets the rest and it's fine. He will recuperate in it won't be a long-term thing. It's not like Kawhi's leg that very well could be degenerative and take him, end his career earlier than it should. But if AD overtakes, it's not the end of the world, but I think Kawhi is more deserving because it's, they're number 3 right now in the West. And I think that they deserve to have a starter. They're 2 games behind the Lakers as of right now, but I think they deserve to have a starter in the All-Star game. So those are my starters in the West. It is Donovan Mitchell, Steph Curry, LeBron James, Nikola Jokic, Kawhi Leonard. Done. Let's head over to the East. Now, the East is where I have a problem, and I need your help. So if you want to do it in the chat, and at the end of the show, and for those in the chat, the email address is at the top, and you can just email then in there, and at the end of the show, I'll send the link out and have you guys jump in, and I want to get your 2 cents. Who should be on there? Because I'll officially put out my ballot. I will vote after the show goes up. And if you guys like, I can tweet you a picture of it. Just, proof of life type of thing. I don't know why I would lie, but it's entirely possible. So in the East, let's start with the no-brainers to me. And I think, once again, here are the other, where I think the fans got it right. Front court, it is KD, it is Giannis, it is Embiid. Those are 3 locks to me. And Jason Tatum being down by 700,000 and 750,000 votes or so. That's fine. I have 0 problem with that. I think all 3 of those are locks. I think 2 out of the 3 of those are, depending on where the Nets end up, could be in the MVP discussion. Embiid is right now. And if the Sixers end the year number 1 in the East, then rightly so, Embiid will be in the mix because he is their most valuable player. And being on the number 1 team in the East will mean something. Even if the Bucks supplant and take over number 1, unfortunately, this is what happened to LeBron. This is what happened to Jordan. This is what happens to anybody that is dominant. Eventually, voters get tired of your dominance. And if you don't somehow kick it up another level, then they're not going to vote for you in a 3rd straight year. Even if Giannis were to put up marginally better numbers than he did last year and say the Bucks ended up number 1 and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They're just tired of voting for Giannis. So they're not going to do it. And he is not in the discussion. But Embiid is. KD, depending on where the Nets end up, very well could be. And I think those 3 are locks. It is the East backcourt that I have an incredible problem with. So I put on names, I took off names. I deliberated on it yesterday. I started, going through, and then I wanted to wait till the games ended last night. Like that was going to make a lick of difference really overall as to how I evaluated this. And then I got up this morning and I started doing it all over again. I took a break to tweet out the link, and that was about it. And just started diving into the numbers and trying to make heads or tails. So my only lock in the backcourt in the East, I think, as of right now, is Jaylen Brown. I took Jaylen Brown. I think the Celtics being in fourth, I guess they deserve to have a starter. It wouldn't be the end of the world. Jaylen Brown is putting up some great numbers. He's played one more game, I believe, than Jason Tatum as of right now. I think the East is just kind of a quagmire for guards. There's a lot of guys that you could make a case for, but I don't think there's many definitives. And Jaylen Brown to me was the easiest choice of all the guard choices. If you watch him, he's managed to go up another half level-ish, maybe a full level if you want to say that. I don't know. But what he's meant to their team, especially with, Tatum not being fully available at times, it's been impressive to watch. And I think, given that I have so many other question marks about other guards, it seemed right to honor and also to spread the love around. So the other guard position, there's my problem. That is the primary, when I put out the call, hey, I need your help today. Who should be my other vote on my official ballot when I send it in? So right now, Brad Beal and Kyrie are leading with James Harden in third place. So if you start with the Nets and you look at the on-off numbers between Kyrie and Harden, with Kyrie, their offense is elite, but their defense is abysmal. With Harden, their offense is good, which is surprising, but right now I think he's trying to facilitate as much as possible and not be, I'm the lone wolf kind of guy. But their defense is actually pretty good. If you look at the on-off, their defense is not, it helps when he's on the floor defensively, and that's saying something considering how bad they are on defense. That if he is sitting on the bench and it's Kyrie out there and they've got another guard with him, the defense just falls into a black hole. And that is their biggest problem right now. And I think Kyrie should be dinged for that. Just if your team is bad defensively and amongst the guards who are getting primary minutes, it's even worse. And technically by, wins and losses of their three primaries, Durant means the most to them. Harden has the least amount of time of the three, but he has a positive record. Technically speaking, they lose more when he's out than win. And Kyrie is the opposite. It's slightly better. They win more, slightly more when Kyrie is out versus when he is, playing. So I don't know. I don't like either of those two. Bradley Beal, he's putting up numbers, but the team is just terrible once again. I realize when you score as many points as he does, he deserves an all-star nod, and I'm not against him making the reserves, although I didn't select him for that or for starters. Just because when you're third worst team in the NBA out of 30 teams, that is terrible. That is utterly terrible. I don't know. Think of it like this. If you swapped Bradley Beal and Curry, how much better would the Wizards be versus how much worse would the Warriors be? I think there'd be a sizable difference between the two. I don't know. Brad Beal's a tough one to me because he should have made a reserves last year. At least this year he's got Westbrook, and that's the other thing that I think dings him. Last year it was like there's not a whole lot around him. I mean, they had Bertans, but Hachimura was a rook. At least this year they've got, Avdija. They had Bryant for a little while, but he's done. But there was no John Wall. He was sitting on the side. So it's like, you can't, how much can you really ding Brad Beal when they have no other really potent scoring, option? And I think at least with Westbrook, you could sell yourself. You could lie to yourself and say, well, they've got somebody who can drive and can facilitate and make the defense collapse and kick out to Bertans or Beal on the wing, and then he can do some playmaking or shoot a mid-range or a three or whatever the case is. But if you want to sell me on him, that's fine. I'm not buying Trae Young. It doesn't, I don't know. He doesn't seem deserving of a starting spot. I'm not saying he's not deserving of making the team. I am leaning towards Ben Simmons, even though offensively it's still the same problem that I had last year of he's trying to take outside jump shots, so that's good. But when you dive into the numbers, they are much more efficient offensively and defensively with him on the floor versus not. And considering they're number one in the East, if I'm having trouble figuring out who the fifth guy should be, perhaps they'll be the lone team that you reward with two starters. But it's not like they're so... If I can't convince myself to reward Utah with two starters, then how in the world can I do it for the Sixers? The East is, tougher at the guard position to kind of figure out, but I don't know. I mean, over in the chat, Johnny Shoemaker says, this better be the year for Zach LaVine. I'm not sure about that. If the Bulls were better, perhaps. Owen Hart said if Trae Young could start last year, Brad Beal should be able to start this year. Yeah, but I wasn't happy with Trae Young starting last year personally. If he gets voted in as such, that's fine. That's fine. Brad Beal's an all-star level player and should have made it last year, and I'm not against him making it. It just being a starter, I don't know. If you want to sell me on Drew Holiday, I think I'd be more open to Drew Holiday than Bradley Beal, just because even though he's third banana on that team, I guess that's kind of tougher. But it's unfair to apples and oranges type of thing, because you have two-time reigning MVP. You got Chris Middleton playing really well, and Drew, benefits from having both of those guys on his team. So I don't know. Perhaps. Yeah, Owen Hart says, look, he's averaging a career low in field goal attempts. You forget he's on the court watching him sometimes. Yeah. But at the same time, it's like their three-point percentage goes up. It's like 11 to 12 points when he's on the court. And this is from a guy that doesn't shoot threes. Now, you could say he's playing bulk minutes with starters. True. But at the same time, his lack of three-point shooting, and when he does shoot, shaky three-point shooting, does not hurt them. And, they are nearing in the low 40s when he's out there. And I want to say it's like 29 or 30% when he's not. That's kind of staggering. That shows you what his playmaking ability translates to in wide open looks or better looks from three. And considering that today's game is primarily three and key, that's kind of huge. So I don't know. There does not seem to be thus far a consensus in the chat. Keep it coming. We're going to move on to reserves, and we can eventually, I guess, circle back to who the starter should be, because in the East, there's going to be somebody extra. So in the West, once again, I had starters: Mitchell, Donovan Mitchell, Steph Curry, LeBron James, Kawhi Leonard, Nikola Jokic. I think those to me are all locks. The reserves, I got Luka. Just with Porzingis back, I think they'll trend in the right direction. And he's also it's part of his team is below average, but it's not like they're so staggeringly out of the playoff mix that he shouldn't be in the discussion right now. They're currently sitting at 13th, but they're only a game back, or game and a half back. A game back of making the play-in game, 2 games back of being in 8th position where the Warriors are. It's like they get on a mild hot streak. Suddenly they're right back in the playoff mix, and the numbers he's putting up are pretty gaudy. So Doncic is my first lock. And the way the reserves work are just like the starters. You get 2 backcourt, 3 front court, and then 2 wild cards. They can be whatever you want. So my other backcourt reserve would be Devin Booker. I think the Suns deserve to have, Booker make as a full reserve, not a replacement, as a full reserve. And, I had him as a potential starter, and then I was like, I'm going to go with Steph Curry because Steph Curry's just been so lights out this year. And once again, if you subtracted Booker, I still think that that's a interesting team just because of what Chris Paul did last year in OKC. He could maybe bring some more of that magic into Phoenix. Although it's nice to have somebody who is just a stone cold killer late. All right. So then after that, on the front court, I've got Anthony Davis. I got Paul George. And then we run into another tough spot of who's the other front court player. And there are a lot of people to choose from. And then I'm going to go ahead and jump to my wild cards, which is Dame Lillard for sure. And then I got a toss up on wild card for the guard position and either Mike Conley or De'Aaron Fox. I think I am going to lean Mike Conley. He's never made an all-star game. De'Aaron Fox is having a nice season. Currently, the Kings are sitting in 7th position, and that's pretty impressive. De'Aaron Fox has been really stellar and late in game, just stone cold at times. But Mike Conley, I think it's time he deserves to make an all-star game. He's never made one. The West has always been so difficult. Utah is number 1 in the West, and they look like they're number 1 in the West. And I think they deserve to have 2 representatives. If the Clippers are going to get 2, and if the Lakers are going to get 2, then how on God's green earth do the Jazz not get 2? So there is my choice for the second wildcard position. So it goes Dame Lillard and Mike Conley. We're filling out with guards. But once again, we go back to I have a problem at front court. Who is my last front court player? And I penciled in the lightest of shades, DeMar DeRozan. Because unexpectedly, the Spurs are in 6. And I'm trying to reward winning here. And they're 3 games above 5. So it's not like they're, at 12-12, I'm sorry, the Kings are in 9th. The Nuggets are in 7th. The Kings are at 12-12 in 9th. Or the Warriors are just 1 game above 500 at 13-12. The Nuggets are in the same kind of position at 12-11. Spurs are above. The thing is, Dejounte Murray, potentially, you could say he is the choice there, but the guard position is so stacked in the West. And the other front court players that he's up against would be Rudy Gobert, but then we're talking about 3 Jazz making it. And I would rather see Conley make it than Gobert personally. Christian Wood. I don't know that you can make a case to me that Christian Wood, because look, Houston's been better than expected. But right now the Spurs sit above. DeRozan has been pretty good thus far when you watch him. Unlike Aldridge, which would be another choice. I'm not saying Aldridge has been bad, but if they could find a taker for Aldridge, I think they happily would, and they would keep DeRozan unless somebody came in with just a huge offer for DeRozan, and they'll move off of him. Zion and Brandon Ingram. Like those are I could be missing somebody, but so Johnny Shoemaker in the chat says, I think Zion is a lock for somewhere in there. Potentially, but you're telling me that I think him and kind of Ingram cancel each other out on a team that is below where the Spurs currently sit, which is at 6th position. Well, Ishmael is saying he'd go for Fox. Mike Conley is not that good this season. And he'd go for Gobert over Conley if it was just 2 Jazz players in the All-Stars. I don't know, man. If you look at the numbers for Conley, he's having a good season, especially when you compare it to last year when he played nowhere near like Conley. So Timothy Williams says, lifelong NBA fan, but the All-Star game for me is literally the only game I don't watch and I don't care about. And you can't match the 90s or 2000 All-Star games. Well, I mean, that's a matter of opinion, but I also think you were younger, so those stars loomed larger, especially in the 90s in your imagination. I think the Elam ending is incredibly interesting. I loved last year's game. I hope this year, well, I hope they don't play it, but if they have to, just given the economics of the situation, that it's another wildly exciting game like it was last year. But anyway, back to the Conley point. I think Conley is, because he's playing like they wanted him to play. If Conley reverted back to what he was last year, they would not be sitting in first place, even with Bogdanovich playing well. So I think that to me is where he's right now the guy that they traded for, and they're sitting at number 1 in the West, which is nobody outside of Salt Lake City was anticipating that as a possibility. I mean, I liked Utah, but I didn't foresee this. So I think I'm going to reward winning and go with DeRozan and just fuck it, guys. Fuck it. Why not? I'm not voting for reserves anyway, so what does it matter? But I'm a blowhard. I show up here weekly to talk about my opinions on the NBA. So there you go. So let's get back over the reserves in the East. Another problem with, okay, so I don't know who should be the other starter in the East. We need to settle that first before we start getting into reserves. So right now in the chat, give me your 2 guards in the East. Who are your 2 guards? Make your cases. If you want to sell me on the fan vote of Beal and Kyrie, go right ahead. If you think it should be James Harden and Kyrie, and we have 3 Nets as starters, which to me is banana times, go right ahead. I think it's Jaylen Brown, and I am unclear. By the way, Owen Hart over on the side says he'd consider SGA because his numbers have been really good, and their record isn't that much worse. I agree. It's the interesting thing with this year's discussion is there's so much of this average that they're a couple games below. But it's not like usual years where like, especially in the West, like the top 10 teams are all 2 to 3 games above 5 and higher as we go up. This year, it's like 500 is getting you to the 7. Like, Denver at 12 and 11 is 7, and the Warriors at 13 and 12 is 8. It's like it's difference between them. I think the only severe drop off is the Wolves. After that, it's like in the West. If you wanted to sell me on SGA, I'm not against it. All right, so people are chiming in. We have Johnny Shoemaker saying Zach LaVine deserves it in his opinion. All well and good. As a Bulls fan, my problem with LaVine is his assist to turnover ratio is just abysmal, and it's tough to watch when he is going to get, basically it's 1-to-1 practically. It's slightly above. It's like 1.1 or 1.15 assists to turnovers. And you need, if you're going to have the ball in your hands as much as he does, if he could get that to 1.5, 1.75, then I would have zero problem voting him in for the All-Star game. So anyway, Shoemaker is saying LaVine. That's apparently his only vote. Owen Hart says Brown and Kyrie. Interesting. Timothy R. Williams says Beal and Sexton. Well, it says Saxton, but I'm guessing he means Sexton. Colin Sexton has been straight balling. And it's been impressive to watch. If he makes it as a reserve, I don't think he'll make it as a starter, obviously, because he doesn't have the votes. But if he makes it as a reserve, I'm not hating on that. Daniel Cara says Brogdon and Brown. Interesting. All my reserves, I got a lock as Domantas Sabonis. And I didn't think the Pacers were so good that they deserved 2. So that's why I didn't put Brogdon into the discussion for me personally. Let's see. Timothy R. Williams says Brown, and he doesn't have anything else. Josh H. says Harden and Beal, maybe Van Vliet. Van Vliet may make my sides, my reserves. I'm not sure yet. Ishmael saying, Pacers should have a rep, probably Brogdon. I think Sabonis is the lock there. And then Johnny Shoemaker, so he wants LaVine to make it, but his starters are Kyrie and Brown. So the consensus seems to be, okay, so the bulk of you are agreeing with me on Brown. He's got the most votes so far. More people may chime in. And once again, I'll shoot out the link towards the end because we're going to near it up here. And if you want to join really quick to throw in your 2 cents, the email is at the top of the chat. And Owen, I saw that you were in. I think most people are content to just chime in the chat, and I'm perfectly fine with that. So Brown, and then after that, it looks like Beal. Wow, really? Beal. On a team that has 6 wins. I mean, I realize it's all-star. It's about the star. This isn't all NBA at the end. So it's to some degree, it's who do you want to see in the game? What stars? What would be the most fun? And boy, that'd be interesting, kind of sticking it to Westbrook. And I don't know that he wants to stick it to Wall, but Wall's not going to make it. Westbrook's not going to make it unless the coaches vote him in for a reserve. Now Shoemaker is okay. So Beal seems to be the lead. All right. I wasn't going to include Beal at all, but as I said, all right. So Beal makes it. I will cut and paste him on my ballot, and I will put Beal in right here. Okay. So we got a problem on the reserves. I got one potentially, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I've got one extra reserve. So somebody's getting clipped off the wild cards. All right. So my reserves then at this point would be Ben Simmons, James Harden, Domantas Sabonis, Chris Middleton, Jason Tatum. Those are my reserves. I'm pretty happy with those reserves. So now for the wild cards, wild card can be anything you like. And wild cards, we have a glut of individuals to potentially make it. And here are the options. I'm just updating Not that it makes any difference to any of you, just for me to view this. So the wild card potentials. The West I had, I was just like, there's 3 dudes really vying for it. Dame was going to be a lock. So it was really like 2 guys coming for this. The wild card in the East. Here's who I have legitimately should be in this discussion. And in a week's time, if the Heat win a few more games and jump into discussion, suddenly now we have Heat players to contend with in this. But I nixed the Heat players. So within the discussion, I genuinely think Gordon Hayward, Fred VanVleet, Kyrie Irving, Trae Young, Julius Randle, Colin Sexton, Zach LaVine, Drew Holiday, Tobias Harris. And then if the Heat start trending in the right direction, Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo. Of those legitimate shots, I think Hayward, VanVleet, Kyrie, Trae, Sexton, and Zach LaVine. There's 2 spots left. Johnny Shoemaker over in the chat asked, do you think Gordon Hayward has a shot? Right now, the Hornets are playing really well. They're 6-4 in their last 10. They're currently sitting at 6th position. The way that Hayward looks like Hayward again, and he's driving to the hoop, and that team looks super interesting. I'm happy for Charlotte. Hopefully they, make it to the playoffs and they're not just like a first round lamb to the slaughter. I am happy that LaMelo Ball is better than advertised. He's been good. He's been really good. So anyway, I think Hayward has a shot. I genuinely do. Owen Hart says Tobias over Simmons. Even I can understand that. Yet by the numbers, Tobias Harris is having a great shooting season. I just think when you do the on-offs, you see how the team fares when Simmons, what he means as a catalyst for their offense, but also defensively, he's a matchup nightmare for all kinds of different guys. But you're not wrong. I flirted with putting Tobias as the other, but I think Simmons edged out for me, and Tobias is in my snubs list. I don't think 3 Sixers deserve to make it, just as I don't think 3 Nets deserve to make it. It's going to be hard for the Nets not to get 2. You have too much star power in KD and Harden, because even when the coaches go to do the reserves, it's just like, yeah, but I game plan for both Kyrie and Harden. So I can easily see both of those guys make it on the reserves, and then they work it down from there. But all right, so there we go. There are your choices. Once again, Gordon Hayward, Fred VanVleet, Kyrie Irving, Trae Young, Colin Sexton, Zach LaVine. I am open to any and all discussions. What do you guys think? Let me see it in the chat. I know who I'm leaning towards. So I think the Raptors do. Ramon Cook puts it in. VanVleet is having a good season, getting some, Raptor records. I think the Raptors deserve to have some sort of representative in there. He's having a marginally better season than Pascal. Pascal's made it in the past, and there's a good chance that they're going to move on from Kyle Lowry this year. I know Miami's interested, and they don't have real championship aspirations, so they need to start building for the next 2 to 4 years as opposed to right now. And if they can get enough draft equity from a team for Kyle Lowry and potentially like a young guy back, I don't know who's going to give up too much. I mean, his salary does restrict what exactly they'd be able to do, and I'd have to look at it and then pop it in the old trade machine. But I think the East is so much average, like I've brought up now. That's basically the theme of today's show, average. It'd be good to have representatives from a wide array of teams. So I think VanVleet he's the first that I wrote down. And I'm also leaning towards Gordon Hayward just because Charlotte has been playing better than expectations. Those are my two. Can anybody convince me of Kyrie? I know people are going to be upset. They want Trae Young, Colin Sexton. I'm a Bulls fan, and I think Zach LaVine has got a shot. But that team is so up and down to watch, and it's frustrating the amount of turnovers that he have. You know, a week ago, he was leading the league in turnovers. Now I think he's third, maybe fourth. But it's great when you score a bunch of points, but if you give the ball up, your turnover percentage is that high. It's like you need to be scoring 40 if you're going to turn the ball over 6 times a game. So what do we got? We got Van Vliet. Let's see. Owen says Julius Randle. All right. Daniel Savoy was talking about LaMelo over in the chat, and he's been impressed, but he's going to wait till the second season. Well, sure. But his shooting is better than I anticipated. The stroke is still wonky, but it's not near as wonky as his brother's. He still drifts a little bit too much on his release, and he's not lined up, squared up with the basket. You know, but his brother's shot form has gotten better over time. It's still not great, but he's starting from a better place. So I think I was skeptical and I was wrong, but I also don't watch anything before they get to the actual pros. So that's why I have people on for a draft show. Cause I don't know shit. I liked 3 guys in the draft, and so far 2 of the 3 have been good. So that's about it. But it was watching clips on YouTube and stuff. It's not like I sat down and watched 15 games and came to a learned position. So can anybody Owen's still making the case for Randle, saying him bringing him back, Knicks back to relevancy is worthy of recognition. Yeah, he's been great. So is IQ. It's been a stellar rookie for them thus far. I think the edge that Tibbs has given them has been an improvement. Jettisoning Dennis Smith Jr. for Derrick Rose, I think was for Smith Jr., who was not in your long-term plans, and a second-round pick. So long as Rose doesn't eat into too many minutes for your development of young guys, I think that was actually a good move for the Knicks. Usually they make these crazy moves and you're like, what are you guys fucking doing? But it's not, I think the extra leadership, a former MVP, a guy that's gone through tremendous trials and tribulations with just having to sit out so much and deal with the mental aspect of the game on top of the physical, could pay huge dividends for their young guys to learn what the grind of what the NBA can be for some individuals. So yeah, Shoemaker, we're talking about more LaMelo over in the chat. He's rookie of the year. He's saying other than the Sacramento kid, which is Halliburton. And then Pat Williams. Pat Williams is better than I thought on draft night. I mean, they took him fourth. I didn't know anything about him, and this draft seems so weird. But yeah, that dude's got confidence. I like him. He has no fear of shooting, and it looks confident every time he shoots it. So I think I'm going to go with Hayward and Van Vliet. I understand Owen, who I'm about to bring on, his point of he's the only one. So everybody else apparently chimed in the chat. I have zero problem with that. A lively chat, and we have a nice number watching live. So thank you to everybody that joined live. We're going to bring Owen on real quick, and we're going to close out. He can give us his All-Stars super quick. Maybe we'll start with the whoops, wrong thing. Let me go grab the link for him. All right, sending it over right now, Owen. If you want to join, I will look for you in a second. I think I'm going, once again, I have no vote in the reserves. And I do think extending to 15 on the rosters instead of 12, that way there's the chance you get a representative from every team, even though there are certain years like this one where I don't necessarily think the Wolves need a representative, or the Pistons, or you make a case for Jeremy Grant, or Orlando. Vucevic has been, really great once again, but not sure about that. But extending to 15, because who gives a shit? Ultimately, do you really care? I don't. All right, so bring it on Owen Hart right now.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
I've been loving the show so far.
All right, so give me your starters. Who you got in the West?
In the West, I have Curry
Sure.
and Dame.
Okay.
Just because I feel like rewarding the Jazz is one thing, but I feel like Dame is having a better season than Mitchell is. And plus, he's been doing it without McCollum, which is impressive that he's been able to lead them to some wins on a depleted. Not even McCollum, without McCollum, Nurkic, and Collins. That's a little impressive. So I'm going to put Dame in starting.
Sure.
Then the front court is, if you don't have that front court, you aren't watching basketball. That's the front court.
Okay. All right. Fine.
And in the East, I'm just going to put Beal and Brown just because I think everybody is pissed off that Trae Young got the start last year and Beal didn't make it. So this is just their response to it, but everybody's just reacting to Bradley Beal being it because they're in no way, shape, or form should Trae Young have started last year. That makes no sense. No sense. So that's what Beal just as a rebuttal to that.
Okay. It seems reactionary, but all right.
It's very reactionary. It's biased, but that's my reaction. And then again, the front court is the same as
mine. I think the front court are no-brainers.
No-brainers.
It's the easiest discussion, whereas the guards, the West is so deep and the East to me is so shallow that's where the actual discussion comes in. Okay. So then give me your reserves for both sides.
Okay. I would put Chris Paul over Devin Booker just because I feel like he's averaging 16 and 8. I mean, also, like a big part of what I consider for All-Stars and also like All-NBA is the stat of rebounds is really undervalued because nobody crashes offensive glass. Everybody gets back on defense. So whenever you watch a game, look at the rebounds. It's not just I'm closest to the rim and I'm going to get it because the defense is 45 feet away because they didn't. So I feel like whenever I tend to look at assists more than rebounds whenever I'm looking at who's having good seasons.
Okay.
So Chris Paul, Devin Booker splits are down, his numbers are down, and they're winning because of Chris Paul. So I'm going to give Chris Paul the nod over him. And then, oh my God, I had the fucking thing up. Chris Paul's getting a nod. Paul George is getting a nod. AD's getting a nod.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you not like the whole 3 front court wild card back? I think it should just be like the best 12. I don't like how they make it. I think
overall it used to be they had the center only position, but then the center position became so shallow. It's like, well, why are we rewarding DeAndre Jordan with an all-star nod?
Well, they had 2015 with that.
It's like, it's fine, but switch the verbiage to front court. But yeah, then I think the bench, I don't mind keeping that in because it's basically the breakdown of an actual game. You need 2 front court or 3 front court, 2 back court. But then for the bench, I think it should just be wide open. But anyway, go ahead.
Okay, so then for the rest of my bench, I'm going to put Luka, Donovan, and then did you consider Christian Wood at all?
Yeah, but once again, I think
he also hasn't played that many games. He's been out,
and right now they're sitting. Is it Christian Wood? John Wall's been playing well. Oladipo since he got traded to them. Yeah, he's been good. Boogie's had a couple games here and there. I don't know that I necessarily credit all of their success to Christian Wood, although Christian Wood's been really good, and especially for a guy that's bounced around to so many teams, it's impressive that he figured his shit out all these years later.
Yeah, I've been liking I hope the Rockets make the playoffs.
I like them too.
I like them over like the Kings or the Pelicans. I'd like to see them be relevant more.
Okay. All right. I think the Kings, just because it's been so long, but I love De'Aaron Fox. I fucking love De'Aaron Fox. But anyway, all right. So who are your final 1 or 2 positions left?
I'd put SGA in just because whenever I watch a Thunder game, which is very, very rare because they are terrible. Whenever I watch them, he just is the life of the Thunder, and they're not so bad. They're 10 and 13. The
Yeah.
Kings are 12-12, and his numbers are a little bit better. And I think that De'Aaron Fox has a little more help than SGA does, and SGA I feel like we are really watching like the next dude in SGA, because I feel like if he can get on the right team, he could be elite.
Yeah, I mean, hypothetically, the dividends of this in a couple of years could pay out huge, just because the sheer number of assets they have coming in, and that he has been the leader now of a team, and he learned from Chris Paul, and he knows what the rigors of the job are. If you want to be the floor general, it could be huge for them in like 2 years, because they'll have so many guys and be able to trade for and do whatever in the world they want to. They could be killers in 2 years.
Did a small party want the Thunder to go the other way last year instead of trying to break it up? Like, hey, you have all these draft picks. Go try to get another guy and make a run. Like, I mean, because they have draft capital. I mean, this is Fantasyland.
But are they going to beat the Lakers? Are they going to beat? I mean, well, now in hindsight, they could have been, the Clippers could have beaten.
But this is the thing where having too many picks kind of hurts you, because you have no incentive to tank. You have no incentive to try to do we want to win, or so they don't really know what they want to do. They don't really have any direction.
Well, it's also, you can't, I mean, you're wearing a Boston shirt. You can't roster all these guys. So you start taking dudes.
That's my least favorite part of the Celtics, is that every single rotation guy is like a second or first year player. It's the most annoying thing in the world that the Celtics do. I hate it so much. Yeah,
but you end up drafting guys sometimes where you're like, okay, you can be on our G League team because we just don't have a spot for you because you have too many, stinking picks.
Tremont Waters is starting tonight. Yeah, cool. But
at the same time, Pritchard looks good.
Yep.
So he's not elite, but at the same time, you got Tatum, you got Mitchell. Not Mitchell, but Brown. You got there's some interesting there. All right.
Have you watched the Celtics recently?
What's that?
Have you watched any Celtics games recently?
Not for like a week.
Them against the Clippers was ugly. Anytime there was a pick and roll, they looked like a chicken with their head cut off. The Celtics looked like they had no idea what they were doing on defense. Okay, last pick. I am going to take. Wow, this is so bad. I'll take De'Aaron Fox.
Okay.
I don't want to take Zion or Ingram, because I feel like De'Aaron Fox is my last pick.
Okay. I mean, I took Conley over him, but De'Aaron Fox to me is very worthy of making it. All right, what about in the East?
Okay, in the East, the people who I'm not taking at all: Russell Westbrook, Jeremy Grant. I don't know why Jimmy Butler got votes. He played like 4 games.
I know.
I'm not going to take any Cavs. Yeah, I'm not going to take any Cavs. I'm not going to take any Bulls. Okay. I'm taking Randall.
Sure.
I'm going to take Kyrie.
Okay.
And the Brogdon-Sabonis thing is a really big – I feel like Brogdon's better, but I feel like, I don't know, Sabonis just does a little bit more. I don't know.
He adds so much fluidity and adds a dynamic to their offense that is tough to replicate. So I think –
Is LeVert coming back at all anytime soon? Because if they kill LeVert, that's I don't know
what the timeline is on that. Yep. Because he had surgery to remove a
mass.
The cancerous mass in his kidney. Which thank God for that trade. Yeah, because he would have, 200,000 people get diagnosed with that in this country every year, and most of them are men age 65 and older. So he would have died by the time, they would have caught it, and it was stage 4.
Yeah.
All right. So So you tell me you're taking Brogdon over Sabonis?
I am taking Brogdon over Sabonis.
Okay,
I'm going to do
sure.
that. And I am also going to reward James Harden for if you look at his numbers.
So 3 nets.
I'm going to take 3 nets. But this is like the kind of thing where I'm just trying to reward certain things. His free throw attempts are down by a lot, which when you watch him, he's not doing typical James Harden stuff.
Mm-hmm.
He's not dribble baiting, fouling, all this kind of stuff where he does the lead in and this. So I'm rewarding him
the bullshit
for cutting out the bullshit. I'm going to reward him for not doing the typical James Harden bullshit that he does. Yeah,
I agree.
Which I love.
He's trying to facilitate more. I think him getting traded was a boon for both teams.
Yep.
Although they sacrificed a lot of depth. But anyway, all right. So who else you got?
I've never seen a team be more in a position to need to make a trade after making a blockbuster trade, because now they need to make a trade to get a big.
The buyout market is more than likely going to help them more than anything. They're
Yeah,
trying to get JaVale, but
they have no draft assets.
They got
trade
nothing.
assets.
Yeah, they need to pick somebody up off the scrap heap.
I'm taking no Raptors, no Hawks.
Okay,
And
I took no Hawks. Everybody's going to take, Trae Young.
I'm gonna take Gordon Hayward, and every year on my podcast we do who's the Cleveland Indians of the NBA from the movie Major League.
Okay.
So one year it was the Brooklyn Nets when they had D'Angelo Russell. They were the Cleveland Indians.
Sure.
And then last year it was the Oklahoma City Thunder.
Okay.
And then this year it's the Charlotte Hornets. They are the Cleveland Indians of the NBA. You got Gordon Hayward as Jake Taylor. You got Bismack Biyombo as Serrano. You got LaMelo Ball as Willie Mays Hayes. This is my Cleveland Indians. Is the present day Charlotte Hornets. So that's the award.
All right.
Quick go to it, and then I'm gonna put Bam in there just because I feel like they're trajecting upwards. They're gonna start winning more games, and he's averaging more points, about the same number of rebounds, and I don't hold their COVID hamstrung season against him. So, he's having a great year.
So no Chris Middleton.
Oh, my bad. Did I run out of space? Because I want to put Middleton and Harris.
I can't remember where you're at on your.
Okay, I'm gonna write down Tobias Harris and Middleton.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, you might have been the individual in the chat saying, Harris over Simmons.
Yeah, that's my 7. My 7 is Kyrie, Randall, Brogdon, Harden, Bam, Tobias, Middleton. Those are my reserves.
It's a solid team. Like there's the Beal to start is the only one that really throws me for a loop. But I did say acquiesced to the crowd. That's what I will officially put out.
I did say if I was voting for all NBA, I'd put Simmons. But for an all-star team, I'm going to put Harris, which is a little annoying, but that's how I'm doing it because
there are different metrics by which you judge it.
Very different metrics. And also, Middleton, I was really, really low on Middleton and Harris just because when I thought they signed their contract, I thought they were not worth the money at all. Yeah. But now they've seemed to prove their worth a little bit. And I'm really starting to like the Sixers a little bit more just because I feel like they really course corrected and they've been cutting in the right path.
Sure.
So that's my team.
Yeah, the addition of Seth Curry, I was intrigued as to what it's going to be like when he gets starter minutes, and he's been really good. So
pretty good.
Yeah, the Sixers. I mean, I'll be interested to see how this ends up by the end of the season because Embiid's health is always a lingering question.
It's very
You don't know if you're going to get minimum 70. They're going to have a 72 game season. Will he play 65? Hopefully.
I'd hope so.
Yeah, exactly.
He said I'm getting chefs and massage therapists and all this stuff. Like
we'll see. But he's also really big and he tends to flop. And
don't do stuff on that.
Yeah, I know. It's ridiculous at times. It's like you're too fucking big for this shit. And he does a rip through that actually technically has been legislated out of the league, and he gets away with the rip throughs that Durant used to do on OKC.
Yeah, the 2013 Durant. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. On an outside shot, and he does it. And I guess they just don't see it that often from a big, and he gets away with it more so because of that. That being said, he's an MVP candidate this year, so very well could be. But solid construction of the roster. I like it.
Yep.
And it's a differing opinion. We have no vote on the reserves. It really only comes down to the starters.
No, we don't.
But, well, there you go. I think that was solid. I appreciate you jumping in. I'll see if.
Thank you very much.
You're the only. Everybody else just wanted to join in the chat, and that's fine. They could be at work or they're just busy doing other shit, and I have zero problem with that. But my thanks to you, Owen. It's good to see you. Stay safe out there, man.
Yep, you too.
All right, later, buddy. All right, well, there we go. There are your official rosters. Once again, I'll run through it, and then we're going to close out. I have Brad Beal as a starter. The votes, I'll let you guys have it, and there you go. Jaylen Brown, Joel Embiid, Giannis, and KD. And the reserves are Ben Simmons, James Harden, Domantas Sabonis, Jason Tatum, Chris Middleton, Gordon Hayward, Fred VanVleet. In the East, in the West, Donovan Mitchell, Steph Curry, LeBron James, Kawhi Leonard, Nikola Jokic. Reserves, Luka Doncic, Devin Booker, Paul George, Anthony Davis, DeMar DeRozan, Damian Lillard, and finally, Mike Conley. Will we have differences? Yes, we will between us. But that's the beauty of it. It doesn't matter because none of our votes on those bench players and reserves count for anything. So there you go. That is it. Well, thank you to everybody who joined in the chat and Owen to joining me on the show itself. I appreciate it. It's nice to see you guys week in, week out. And then I think that is it. Make sure to get your ballots in if you wanted to vote. I believe the cutoff is February 16th, which is next Tuesday. And that's why I couldn't do this on next Wednesday, which I would preferred to go right up to. I wish the vote was due next Wednesday because then I would have done this show and you would just somehow, to me, that extra, maybe the Heat would have trended in the direction to where they're now deserving of getting Bam or somebody else on there. And by somebody else, I mean Jimmy, but be Bam that would make it. Or potentially would have the Kings surged even further and it was hard to deny the De'Aaron Fox making it or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You could do this for a lot of different teams and a lot of different players. There's snubs every year. And I'm sure people right now watching and listening are upset that I didn't have certain players. And I do it too when I listen. I'm like, what is the case for? And I think as far as other Bulls fans, I'm just way harder on our team. I don't want to I want them to strive for greatness. So I don't know. Giving him an all-star, what does that do? Does that make him play harder? Or he seems like the type of guy where if he got snubbed, he would probably play harder. But then there's also the case of, well, if you perpetually get snubbed playing for this team, then you don't want to play for this team anymore because you want to be more relevant on another team. It's like, oh, playing for the Bulls is never going to get you an all-star nod. Now, that's not the case. But that's neither here nor there. So, Zach, you got a shot at making it. I hope you do. I got nothing against you. You're electrifying it numerous times to watch play. Just please stop turning the ball over so damn much. That's what kills me about watching. It's like, oh man, what was that misguided lazy ass pass? That is so brutal, man. It's basically I could do that. That's not why I'm watching. I'm not watching for things I can do. I'm watching for things that I cannot do. But anyway, so there are the all-star ballots from me for both conferences. Timothy R. Williams. Maybe we'll do that one. Who do you put in the 3-point competition? Because everybody shoots threes now. That's true. Yeah, maybe we'll do that next week. I like that. Thank you, Mr. Williams. Who's the dream ticket for 3-point competition? Who do we want to see? Well, there we go. That is it for today's Dropping Dimes. You can follow me anywhere at Matt Nost. And if you could leave a rating for the show on your podcast feed of choice, it helps increase the visibility of the show, potentially get us trending in the sports section on iTunes, or I don't know if Spotify and others have those trending sections, because I'm an Apple user, so I have an Apple phone or an iPhone. I have those other apps, but I just use the podcast app off of that about 99.9% of the time because I'm lazy. That's all. But please give us a rating if the podcast app that you use takes ratings. Thoroughly appreciate it. And that is it for this week's Dropping Dimes. Stay safe out there. If you haven't gotten your vaccine yet, stay 6 feet apart. Do the things you've been doing. Now they're saying double mask, so let's double mask it, guys. Double mask it. I need to get some of those surgical masks, and I can start double masking myself. Although I don't go out that much, I sit at home quite a bit. But that is it. I'll see you guys next week for another live edition of Dropping Dimes at noon. And then the week after that, I have to tape in advance because I'm going to be indisposed on that Wednesday at noon. So I'll be taping on the previous night, and you guys will just be getting it at noon as opposed. So there won't be a live, but it'll come out at noon on YouTube, and then I'll do noon on the podcast feed as well because it's just easier to line things up simultaneously as opposed to staggering. But that is neither here nor there. Who cares? That is it for Dropping Dimes this week. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And I'll see you guys in 7 days' time. Until then, adios.